Welcome to Time is Not on Your Side with your host, board-certified litigation attorney Robert Eckard. In every episode, we'll hear from other attorneys, accountants, and other professionals who can impact the success of your litigation. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, roberteckardlaw.com. Now here's the host of Time is Not on Your Side, Rob Eckard.
Good morning, everybody. Today's episode of Time is Not on Your Side podcast is international law professor, international law expert, and former judge in Medellin, Colombia. Today we have an amazing guest, Professor Luz Nagel. Professor Nagel, good morning.
Good morning, Rob. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited for you today. And you know, the listeners are going to get, and the viewers are going to get so much enjoyment out of this because there's just so much that you have to share. And before I do that, let me introduce you formally to our audience. Professor Emeritus now from Stetson University College of Law, where Professor Nagel taught for more than 25 years. Just recently moving on to pursue other interests. I didn't use the word retirement because that's not something she considers herself to be doing, because I know she hates that word. Professor Nagel holds an LLD from Universidad Pontificia Bolivariana from Colombia with a specialization in criminal law and sports law, a JD from the College of William and Mary in Virginia, a very prestigious law school. She holds an LLM in international law from the University of California, Los Angeles School of Law. She has a Master's of Arts in Latin American Studies, including law, political science, and history from the University of California, Los Angeles, and 2 certifications in national security law from the Center for National Security Law at the University of Virginia Law School. Professor Nagel specializes in international law, international criminal law, transborder criminal law, international human rights. Her career prior to teaching includes having confronted drug lords and political corruption as a young judge in Medellin, Colombia, practicing commercial employment law with a large Colombian agribusiness, working undercover as a private investigator in Los Angeles when she came to the United States. And she has also served as a law clerk for the Supreme Court of Virginia, and pursuing software pirates as a member of Microsoft Corporation's Latin American copyright enforcement practice. Professor Nagel has lectured and presented at universities throughout the United States and internationally. She is a consultant for USAID, U.S. Southern Command, U.S. State Department, United Nations, and other international law firms. She's involved in global anti-corruption, anti-human trafficking, training and education, judicial reform, and the rule of law initiatives in fragile, transitional, and post-conflict states. She has engaged government officials, military commanders, journalists, and human rights activists, get this, folks, from more than 80 countries. Now, you folks that are listening and watching today, there's like 195 countries in the world, and she's done it for almost half of these countries, okay? She's a legal expert with the State Department's Distinguished Foreign Visitors Program, and she's been a State Department consultant in the areas of international and domestic law in Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, Panama, and Venezuela. More recently, Professor Nagel conducted training and outreach to government and non-government stakeholders on anti-human trafficking and anti-corruption efforts sponsored by the American Bar Association Rule of Law Initiative programs in Cartagena and Bogota, Colombia, and Lima, Peru. Professor Nagel has been described this way by some law professors. She is a beacon of knowledge in the realm of international law, whose unwavering commitment to her students and passionate advocacy against human trafficking and left an incredible mark that will persist long after her moving on. Another professor says her profound dedication to shaping the next generation of legal minds and her tireless efforts in addressing global issues showcase a legacy that extends far beyond the classroom. She exemplifies the intersection of expertise, empathy, and leaving an inspiring imprint wherever she goes. And finally, another professor has said, while she continued to pile up awards and accolades throughout her career and was highly sought as a speaker throughout the world, Luz's real passion has been teaching, and she has excelled at. So with that, I could go on for days, Professor Nagel. Welcome.
Thank you, Rob. Wow, my goodness. I should just hire you to do the introductions for me from now on.
Well, I'm gonna, listen, this is such a special treat for me today. And before I get into a couple of the books and publications that you have recently authored, which are voluminous, I want to tell the audience that I have known you for, I think, the greater part of 25 years. And I can't express enough to our listeners and our viewers how much you have meant, not only to me, but to the thousands of students you have taught and impacted. And I know that firsthand because I have routinely had law clerks here at my firm that have had you as a professor, a mentor, a supervisor, a counselor. And the impact that you have had is obvious. So let me start from the beginning, a little bit from the beginning, not quite the beginning, but tell the listeners and viewers a little bit about you and your role, because it's very interesting when you were working in Colombia as a judge and things that happened during that time.
Well, it was centuries ago, and I won't tell you how many years ago because you will be counting and knowing. Anyway, see, it wasn't easy because it was during a time when Pablo Escobar, the war on drugs, started. And as a female during that time in Colombia, it wasn't easy. So when I arrived to my jurisdiction, it was a jurisdiction where there were a lot of peasants growing coffee, plantain, and I had a chance to see the transformation of that area when the drug lords started bringing a lot of their businesses to the region. It went from a peaceful area to a place where we had constant killings, and it was a very difficult task. As you know, I was a judge during the inquisitorial system. That means that I had several roles. I was kind of like a prosecutor in charge of the police, telling them what to gather as evidence. And at the same time, I was shifting to make decisions. So when President Reagan went to TV and declared the drugs a national security issue in the United States, everything changed. All my docket became criminal, and I had to emphasize trying to go after those who were making drugs, selling drugs. It wasn't easy. In my jurisdiction, I had a drug lord, Joaquin Willis, who pretty much he was the founder of the mule system. He used children in the 70s to shift cocaine to the United States. How did he use it? He gave a prize to the children that were the first ones in class, and he will give them backpacks and go through the immigration system because it was prior to 9/11. Once they arrive to Orlando, they will remove the backpacks and get the drugs. At any case, this individual had a lot of sicarios who were the killers and the individuals who protected him. And in one occasion, I had to go to the house that he had. And I remember it was prior to computers. We had a mobile typewriter that my secretary took. And we had to document everything we saw. And I remember telling my secretary, could you please turn the light on because it's very dark in here. When he turned the light on, the room transformed. The book cases shifted and it was liquor. And the light, it was one of these discotheque balls and the music started. So things like that. And I had assassination attempts. I had death threats. It wasn't easy. I witnessed a lot of corruption. A lot of the mayors and representatives will be having parties at these mansions, either Pablo Escobar or Joaquin Willis. The police officers that are supposed to protect you, they will be lining up by the door of the drug lords waiting for the Christmas present, which is called aguinaldo. So when I had one of the death threats that the government offered me to put a police officer in my office, I said, no, why do I want someone that is in the hands of the drug lords to know everything that I will do? It wasn't easy because you didn't know who was giving information to the drug lords. In another occasion, I was supposed to go to another place where there was a suspicion that they were making drugs. And when I called the police came to pick me up, but we arrived and everything was clean.
I mean, so, I can't imagine trying to do your job as a judge, a prosecutor, in an environment where you are looking constantly to your right and to your left, even to your colleagues, to wonder, have they been bought? Are they part of the payroll that is seeking to remove me? Obviously everything we do in our lives shapes us one way or the other. And it sounds to me that obviously that impact, that experience, and of course, this is your country, your beloved country, you have a passion for, certainly shaped your trajectory that resulted in you then leaving Colombia, obviously, because you're here and coming to the United States, to Los Angeles, correct?
Yes. After the last assassination attempt, my husband is from California. He is 6'4", blonde, blue eyes. So as you well know, Colombian men are not that tall. And during the 80s, it was unique to find someone that size. So he was in the process of moving to Colombia. But then after the last assassination attempt, we decided that I needed to leave. So through a congressman in California, everything was done via the U.S. Embassy, and I left. And it wasn't easy, Rob, because I had to start from zero.
Did you speak English when you came from Colombia?
Well, my English stopped at the border because it was White House, red, blue, stuff like that. So I really had to go to English as a second language. And not only that, it was suggested by the U.S. government to change my name and avoid being among a lot of the Hispanic community, because by then, especially in California, there were a lot of the mules and sicarios that were going to that area. And just for safety reason, I really needed to extricate myself.
So you come to Los Angeles, which some might say maybe worse than Medellin. But you come to Los Angeles. Of course, I got my display flags here today because I have an affinity also for your country, your birth country of Colombia, and I've done business there and been there many times, and honor your presentation today. So you come to Los Angeles, you meet this incredible guy, Jerry, who I know, who's an amazing guy. And at the time, you're kind of finished with the law, right? I read that you thought all lawyers are corrupt. I don't want to even do law anymore, right?
Yep. Yeah, actually, Jerry and I met in 1982 in Santa Barbara. And he was going to be in Colombia after getting married. And then everything changed. We came to LA, and I told Jerry, I want nothing to do with the law. I want nothing to do with the legal system. I do not believe in the legal system. And he's very patient, and he said, you will do it. And he was working for a big law firm in LA. And I did some pro bono work with the Hispanic community, and I got curious about the US legal system. And I thought, maybe if I learn another legal system and trying to find what is that the Colombian legal system misses, and just try to be a bridge and try to improve a lot of the problems that I left behind. That's when I did a lot of English as a second language. I became a private investigator. I love that job, by the way. Oh, that was the highlight of being in LA.
What did you like about it?
Everything, but my first assignment was to be undercover. So I had to change my name. My name was Beatriz. And again, it was before technology. I was supposed to take notes of everything that was going on. I was hired because there was suspicion that a lot of the employees were using drugs and they were stealing from the company. I found out that the company was illegally shipping chemicals, precursors to Mexico and Colombia. So my duty as an undercover ended when I discovered that. But let me just go back to what I was doing. So I will be on the dock with all the Hispanics that will be talking in Spanish, and I'll just get information. And then I'll have to write notes and put the notes in my bra. When I will go to the bathroom, put them in my bra. And by the end of the day, I had to write a report, and I had to mail my report from different places. So that was the highlight. And I also follow a lot of the movie stars. We were hired to follow them when they were going through divorce. I also did a lot of the workers' compensation, that a lot of the workers will claim that my back broke or I can't work. And then Saturday or Sunday, I will go and take pictures of them flipping and playing soccer and all this stuff. So it was fun.
It's interesting. So let me fast forward because of time, but I could talk to you all day, and you are just so fascinating. So let's fast forward through law school, and you come to the East Coast. You go to the College of William and Mary for law school, and let me fast forward to 1998, where you come to Florida. I think it's 1998.
1998, yes.
Okay. And you come to Florida in 1998. You come to Stetson at that time, Stetson University College of Law, correct? And you come to run or oversee something new for them, which is their LLM and International Law program.
Yeah, I was interviewed by Stetson twice. The first time they told me that they were not hiring because they were thinking about developing an LLM in international law. So they were just looking around to see who they could think about if that came to fruition. And I was working for Microsoft when I got the phone call from Stetson, and they said, we are hiring this year. We would like to interview you again. So I said, well, what the heck, why not? So I interviewed with them and they made me an offer because the ABA had approved the LLM on international law and business transactions. So that's how I came to Stetson, just to be part of the LLM program and their goals in the international arena.
Well, you were getting there just as I left with my law degree, and then went to the state attorney's office as a prosecutor, and then I left there, and then I went back to Stetson to get that very LLM degree in international law that they offer now. I was one of the probably very first classes, and to our listeners, I know it's going to be hard to believe because Professor Nagel doesn't look anywhere like she could have been my professor back then. But I had you for several international law classes, and now those international law classes are not just part of the LLM program, but I know that there are students in the JD program that have taken those courses, have taken classes with you in the JD program, and I'm not sure when Stetson offered it, but they also have an international law certification for JD students.
Yes, well, that's the beauty of the program. Having JD students with the international students and those from the US that want to learn more about international law. Why? Because you have a very diverse group of individuals with different backgrounds, with different experiences that can bring so much to the class discussion and can bring so much for others to learn. And when you have international students paired with the JD students, they help each other and they become friends for many, many, many years. And that is just fantastic.
I remember a course that I can't remember the name of the course, what international law course it was, but you had a guest speaker come in and he was with, I believe, could have been the Pentagon, and he had made a statement at that time to the students in the LLM program, this class I was in, and he believed that the next major conflict, World War III, arguably, was going to be with China. And I think it wasn't shortly after that I believe China became part of the World Trade Organization. Around that time, as anyone knows, countries that do business together don't want to fight typically, right? They have their own self-preservation interest in mind.
Yeah, I remember it was Guy Roberts who worked for the Pentagon, and then after 9/11, he worked for the White House on weapons of mass destruction, and then he went to NATO, and he was also in charge of weapons of mass destruction. Yes.
So do you think that China's entry into the WTO was good for, I guess, national security reasons?
Well, the hope was that by bringing China to the World Trade Organization, China was going to play by the rules. But the problem is not just that China didn't play by the rules or has yet to really play by the rules, but that the other countries have bended back and forth to please China, overlooking, ignoring, and justifying a lot of the violations that China continues making.
They play by the rules. It's just that the rules are their rules.
Exactly.
But I'm far from an expert in the World Trade Organization declarations, but obviously parties to that convention hope to have these rules, these guidelines, and I don't know if they're aspirational or if they're fixed in stone. It sounds like they're kind of aspirational, with everybody benefiting and having the same equal paring. But you're right. I mean, when you have the 800-pound gorilla in the room that can dictate a little bit more than others, and there's an economic incentive to look the other way. I guess that's what happens. You also have had a bit of involvement at The Hague. Is that correct?
Yeah.
What have you done there at The Hague? Either the ICC, which is the International Criminal Court, or what have you done there?
I have worked in The Hague with Stetson and with the International Bar Association. And I took the students to speak with one of the judges who is an expert on violence against women. And I organized not only for the students to speak with the judge, but also I thought that it was going to be very important for them to have an interaction with the prosecutor and with defense attorneys. Because as you well know, not every student could be or wants to be either a judge or a prosecutor or defense. So just to be more inclusive, I was able to gather a diverse group of individuals. And I think that it is just so important that when you go to a place to offer the students those international court acquaintances and individuals who work there. But I also have worked with the International Bar Association with various issues, specifically human rights, international humanitarian law, and one that is very close to my heart, abuse against women.
Well, I'm going to get into that next, and so let me kind of circle back to your achievements, and in particular your books and publications. One being the title "Understanding Human Trafficking, Corruption, and Optics of Misconduct in the Public, Private, and NGO Sectors: Causes, Actions, and Solutions." In a nutshell, what is that book about, Luz?
The book is about the intersection between corruption and human trafficking. And corruption, organized crime, have been, because of my experience in Colombia, they have been so important to me. And after so many years of practicing law, consulting, and working in the field, I could say with certainty that corruption is the common denominator for environmental devastation, for human rights abuses, for economic problems. So that is the common denominator. So working with the International Bar Association, I was a member of the task force on trying to find the links between corruption and human trafficking. And we did a report on that. So I wanted to expand on that report. And that book, what it does is it brings different players, and the acts that may be construed as corruption, maybe because the actors do not know that they are not supposed to behave that way, especially when we talk about NGOs, because several NGOs are not headed or presided by lawyers. So that is one of the sectors. The other one is the private enterprises, corporations, companies, the fishing industry, the clothing industry, the food industry, that many times use slave labor. And then public corruption, which is the police officer, the immigration officer, the politician, the senator, the mayor. So it goes through every single player.
It doesn't. I did want to compliment you. It does give the reader a good overview of the differences in the perspectives between. Some people think that human trafficking is the same as smuggling. Some people think that they don't know the extent of human trafficking, and I think your book outlines that it's akin to or larger, just under international narco trafficking, just under like slavery, modern day slavery.
Yes. And there is one, and a lot of people think that human trafficking is just sex trafficking. No, it goes beyond sex trafficking. There is a chapter on the book about harvesting of organs, and that brings a hybrid type of corruption, the private sector and the public sector corruption. And I have to tell you, it was one of the chapters that was the most difficult one to write. And after interviewing doctors and just looking at a lot of the things that happened, it was difficult just to see how low human beings can go.
It is shocking once the light is shed on these issues, how prevalent it is in certain countries and even the United States. And the portion of your book that discusses the Albanian and I believe Bulgarian women that are brought maybe to Athens and are impregnated for the purposes of selling the newborn for adoption purposes. I mean, it's just so profound and epic. It's hard for most people to really wrap their head around what occurs in these countries and in places in Africa and things of that nature. But you really do shine the light on those issues, which I think is important, which gets me to the next book you wrote, although it's in Spanish, Negociación en casos de corrupción, fundamentos teóricos y prácticos. So, and that, is that more of a book for teachers and students? Because what I think I gathered from it, it's a research study or how to research the issues of corruption.
And that is a great pronunciation, by the way. It's pretty much a plea bargain. And you know how the plea bargain works in here and why something like the plea bargain system, when we have all these corruption with corporations, it's looking at the origins and looking at the benefits, the good and the bad. And the whole purpose of that book is not just to entice teachers, but also trying to tell policymakers, maybe there is another way. Because if you look at when we go after corrupt corporations, how much money we have to invest to go after the bad guys. And if you think about the plea bargain system, it may be a shorter way to try to recuperate some of the money, maybe to give some of the money to the victims. So there are other ways to resolve these issues.
Well, you know, in I think there's been some commonality. I've handled my fair share of cases in dealing with the Hague Convention, the civil aspects of parental abduction under the Hague Convention, and what the consequences, what the effects are on the children that are taken to a country without the other parent's consent. And I had a case a couple of years ago that the mom brought her children here. She was Egyptian, which is not part of the Hague Convention, but they came through South Africa, which gave her the ability to have standing here in a federal district court to stay here and protect her children. But the Hague Convention was triggered by her then husband. But that case involved instances of FGM, which is female genital mutilation, which is as an advocate you are for women's rights worldwide. You're familiar with that type of thing, correct?
Yes, and allow me just to say thank you for all those cases that you have taken, because it really shows your leadership and that you care.
Well, I like to do it. In fact, I just had 3 children reunited with their parents, 2 in Barranquilla, Colombia, and 1 in Bogota. So I don't do it for the money, and quite frankly, they're usually non-paid. But I think it's important. But touch upon the FGM issue. The
female genital mutilation, and it works in the field of human trafficking. It works in the field of human rights. It works in the field of international humanitarian law. And that is a huge problem worldwide. And when we talk about migration, a lot of these women, they go to Western countries. And even if it is criminalized, for example, in the UK, it is criminalized to allow genital mutilation. However, some of the parents will go on vacation to the country of origin, and that vacation will imply female genital mutilation.
Do you see that as a cultural thing? I mean, what is your understanding of why parents do that?
Yes, it is a cultural thing, and it's one that it's not that we are trying to change culture. No, the rapporteur from the United Nations on Human Rights was very clear when she was talking about juju, which is kind of like voodoo to entice women to go to other countries. But she was very clear about culture. We respect culture under international human rights if that culture is not used as a tool to injure. And when we look at female genital mutilation, that is a tool that injures women. And you look at why they do it, so that women don't feel pleasure, that women are kept kind of like a virgin. There are just so many things that comparing that to equality, and it's no equality. Women are used as property, as things. So it just.
I think you summed it up right there. They're not treated as a human being and as chattel property, right? I mean, let me ask you, Luz, of all the things you've done and are doing, and I think I know the answer, but what are some of your real passions? And other than your family, I know your family, you're super passionate about your family, and you got a beautiful family. You got two beautiful daughters, former Division I athletes. One's a doctor, I think. One is a vet. One just got married. An amazing husband. I know you love your family, and you got an amazing family. You obviously have done well. You and Jerry have done well with your kids. What are some of your passions that you have?
I will need another hour, but just, trying to fight inequality, trying to fight corruption. And to me, the presence of organized crime, it's so big because of corruption. And if you look at the world in which we're living now, it is in chaos. It is in chaos. I think my passion now is to continue working to improve the community in which we live. And that was something that I told my students, don't think about the international arena now. If you improve your little community, that will be enough, because that will start spreading little by little.
How big of an influence, Luz, was your dad, or watching your dad? And he was a dean, I believe, an engineering dean in Colombia. And I read that he would often have students come over and he would help them. And I assume there was a level of affluence that you had that maybe others in your country didn't have. And your dad gave back quite a bit. He was what seemed to me, an altruistic person. What kind of impact did that have on you?
Huge. It was my dad and my mom. Both of them were amazing. We were 9 children, and I was number 8. My dad was the dean of chemical engineer at a big university, and the 2 children will go with him to school Saturdays or Sundays. And what he will do was to teach the students that were left behind. And many times he will invite them to our home. And I remember a big green blackboard that he will have in the house. And the house will be piled up with students. And he will be empowering the students. Not only that, he was empowering women because and one of my classmates was accepted to mechanical engineer because of my dad. He fought for women's rights. He looked for jobs for women. And my mom was always there, present, being the leader, being the example. She was the one that will tell us, you were lucky enough to have education. You owe it to the society to give back to them.
I believe that behind every strong man, there's directly next to him is a strong or stronger woman. I'm all for that. You're currently involved in a couple projects. Let me make sure I get them right. You were recently, and I guess unexpectedly, appointed as the chair of the ABA Rule Law Initiative for Latin America and the Caribbean. And as the chair, you would be overseeing the rule of law and development projects throughout the region. And part of this committee includes a U.S. Supreme Court justice and a federal judge. And you have also, I understand, been just recently voted to the IBA's Human Rights Committee, which has worldwide impact and includes other collaborators and distinguished luminaries. So what's next here?
Just continue working, and I'm a consultant for the United Nations. I'm now working, trying to bring a lot of cases to prove that there is a link between corruption and human trafficking, so that we can empower and train people, and that the governments can just try to put policies in place that are going to be effective to curtail that. So just the sky's the limit.
What's the hardest part about being Luz Nagel?
Not having enough time in the day.
What else? Do you find it hard to write? Do you find it hard to set aside time, or do you know, how do you do that with what you have so much going on? And I know you're obviously looking at you stay fit. You like to stay fit. I mean, how do you do it?
I love running. That's my drug. I love running. I do weights, like you. We are mind, body, and soul. So just the discipline is important. And I think that the busier I get, the better it is for me to manage things. And now that I have a grandson, then I just go and help with the grandson. And also that my daughter can do her job. That is my time to just give my time to them, for them just to continue.
I'm not sure if I would be. I don't think I'd be surprised if somewhere along the way I found your twin in a completely identical person, and I said, "That's how she does it." There's two of her.
No. I have a husband that is just fantastic. I have a husband that is just so understanding, supportive. And sometimes when I just had felt that I'm just throwing the towel, just working with issues to transborder crime, with issues of human trafficking, and when I'm writing and doing all this research and interviewing people. And I have to confess, just sometimes I have crying and tell my husband, I can't keep going. And he's like, you can. So he is the voice of reason and my engine.
Your support system, that's really important for listeners. We all need that in our lives. And, I hope that when Hollywood calls for the movie of Luz Nagel's life, that you somehow consider me as an extra somewhere in there to place some handsome man.
Right. You want to be a good guy or a bad guy?
I don't care, as long as I'm in your movie. So in the last few minutes that we have, and I really, this time has gone so fast for me. It's hard for me to stay move on to different topics because we've just scratched the surface. But, I think one of the things like the Book of Solomon is a favorite book of mine. And one of the things that I pray for every day is wisdom. I pray for that more than anything. Do you have any words of wisdom to people that will be listening and watching, be it students, lawyers, government officials, in your career and your experience? Is there anything that you would like to impart on those that might be interested in what you've done and are doing?
What I tell my, and by the way, I do miss my students. I love them dearly. They were also the engine that kept me going. I would say, life is not easy and we fall. It's okay. We cry. It's okay. But get up and continue moving forward. And more importantly, find those who understand you, support you. Everyone has something to give. Everyone has something to offer to improve the place where we are. And just don't allow just social media and all these things to make you feel inferior, that you need to look like someone else. No, just be yourself. Allow that person from within reach the sky and continue learning. Life, it's about learning and giving back. If we have the luck to have education, to have food, to have healthcare system, we owe that to the society, to those who do not have it. And allow me, today is Women's Day, just to remember so many women in the world that being battered, abused. A lot of the Afghan women, Iraqi women, so many women, even here in our country, domestic violence. It's just so important that we use what we know and what we have to empower others.
Well, I love your message, and to recap it, life is hard. And I think once we recognize that, we're better off because we know it's hard, so we can deal with it. So you're going to get knocked down. It's going to happen. It's part of the learning process, but get back up. That's what matters.
Yeah.
Two, I think another second point you make is incredibly important. Be yourself. Be authentic. I talk to young lawyers trying cases or practicing law, and we look at other people and we want to be them and we want to mimic it. And that's fine to pick up skills, but be authentic, because when you're not authentic, it shows. And finally, I think one of the big points you make is give back. Give back to others. And, I do believe still that God has blessed me beyond abundance. And part of the reason I think he has done so is so that I can bless others. And so giving back really helps us not focus on us, and then allows us to focus on doing things for others. It puts our problems or issues in greater perspective. So your words of wisdom are deep, they're heartfelt, and they are wise in and of themselves. So, I don't know how many more episodes we'll be doing here, but I know I will not lose contact with you. And I love you. I think you're amazing. I think you are just the epitome of what a woman, a lawyer, a mom, and an advocate and a teacher should be. So I know we're getting ready to wrap up here, but I really do truly appreciate you giving us a part of yourself today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor, and just seeing your trajectory, it's just amazing.
Well, I enjoyed it, and this concludes another episode of Time Is Not On Your Side. Be sure to hit the like button on our social media platforms and drop me a message if you have any comments. Res ipsa loquitur, folks. Have a good day.
You've been tuning into Time is Not on Your Side with your host, board-certified litigation attorney, Robert Eckard. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, roberteckardlaw.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.